Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and speech therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to SLP Learning Series, a podcast series presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. The SLP Learning Series explores various topics of speech-language pathology. Each season dives deeper into a topic with a different host and guests who are leaders in the field. Some topics include stuttering, AAC, sports concussion, teletherapy, ethics, and more. Each episode has an accompanying audio course on SpeechTherapyPD.com and is available for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. Now, come along with us as we look closer into the many topics of speech-language pathology.
All right, I think we are getting started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this continued journey today. This journey of self-discovery and growth. I am your host, Stephanie Michelle Swigert. I am a licensed and practicing school-based SLP out in Los Angeles, California. And I also hold a certificate as a teacher of mindfulness, meditation, and compassion-based practices. My pronouns are she, her, and a warm welcome to just everybody, to all of our listeners in the community, maybe some of you who are joining for the first time, maybe some of you who are repeat offenders and you love coming for this professional development that is accessible from anywhere that you are. That is what is so amazing about SpeechTherapyPD.com. And a thank you to them for having me and for this opportunity, really for holistic self-development. It meets my needs to be here with all of you, to have that connection, to have that shared reality and this learning time and growth, to be able to contribute to our field in this way, and to be able to build a supportive community with all of you here today. Now, before we get started, there is a little housekeeping that I need to alert you to. Each episode is 60 minutes, and it's going to be offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. As far as my financial and non-financial disclosures, for financial, I own a non-public agency in Southern California called Golden State Speech Pathology Services. And I also received payment for this episode and an honorarium from SpeechTherapyPD.com for the professional development that I share through their site. For non-financial disclosures, I do not have any at this time. It's also important before we get started just to share with you that this podcast is the information that's being shared here is for informational and educational purposes only. So while we're striving to really provide valuable insights and strategies, it's super important to recognize that this podcast is not a substitute for professional therapy or counseling. I have a chat box up here. I'm excited to hear from all of you. Go ahead and just pop in one word on where everybody is coming from to join me tonight, or I'm not sure what time of day it is for you. So go ahead and throw it in the chat box if you want to put in your city, if you want to put in your state, your country, or maybe you just want to say I'm here on my couch or listening. East Bay, all right. Oh, Temecula, awesome. Jessica, Redondo, woohoo, more East Bay, Austin, Texas. Oh, this is awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for sharing where you are. More Temecula. I wonder if you guys are hanging out together. We got Pacific Grove, lots of people who are tuning in for this conversation. All right, before we dive in, guys, let's just take a moment because I know you guys have very busy schedules, very busy lives. I just want to do a quick informal grounding exercise. So wherever you are, unless you're driving operating a vehicle, if you can just take a moment to maybe find a comfortable seat, close your eyes if it feels right for you. Let's just take a deep, calming breath together. So we're going to leave behind everything that we just left, and we're really going to try to bring our full attention and presence right here to this moment together, so you can really walk away with as much possible, as many tools as you can moving forward. So let's take that deep breath together. Just letting it go, letting all that day just kind of go out from you, taking maybe one more calming breath, feeling it coming in through your nose and your nostrils, maybe feeling it go to the back of your throat, feeling the rise of your shoulders, maybe your chest coming out, big breath in, and just letting it out and settling right on in to be here together. Very nice. I want to share that the person we'll be discussing today, which is the person for our case study, they've opted to not appear live on the air with us today, and we absolutely respect that choice and we value their privacy. However, they did generously provide us with a very detailed case scenario via a questionnaire that has been going out. You might have received it, or maybe you'll receive it after today's podcast. But I believe that their experience that they filled out on the questionnaire is so incredibly valuable. And we did get permission from that person to be able to share with all of you today. So today's episode, Breaking the Silence, a school SLP's reality check. And I'm going to be sharing their insights and their story on their behalf. So again, thank you for understanding and respecting this person's choice to remain anonymous. As I pointed out in episode 1, I really want this to be this shared experience, this conversation with you guys, you, the listeners. I want to know that you're here with me through this screen. I want to feel the energy, like how you just threw in where you're coming from, your questions, your comments, your insights. They are not just welcome, but we can learn from them. We're all going to learn from one another. We're here to learn together. And I have so much that I know that I want to be able to take away from what you're sharing too. I want to learn from you guys, some golden nuggets. And I've also prepared something special for you. If you noticed, when you are enrolling in this class, there is a handout with a QR code. And if you scan that QR code, that's how you're going to download a workbook companion for this episode and all the episodes in this podcast mini course. So this is going to be a tool that we're going to use today that's going to help us navigate through our topic, a very exciting one. We're going to be highlighting anger. Give me a shout out in the chat box if you have already downloaded this workbook on speechtherapypd.com. Again, it's just a QR code, so make sure you get your hands on that, because your participation is going to make this podcast really a community. And I'm going to be able to hear your thoughts. And when you have that framework in front of you, it's not just informative, but it's interactive. It's going to give you those word banks that we're going to be sort of weeding through when we're looking for the appropriate vocabulary when we're talking about universal feelings and needs. So if you haven't grabbed it yet, go ahead and make sure you grab that workbook, even if it's after the podcast. I want to start off now with what I think is a very inspirational poem. Some of you may have heard it, maybe not. This is a poem by the Persian poet Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. And I think this was a perfect way for us to settle in and start our discussion today. So again, it's The Guest House, and it is translated by Coleman Barks. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I love this poem because this poem is really about welcoming and acknowledging all of our emotions and all of our thoughts and experiences that come into our lives, that are alive for us. And Rumi uses this metaphor as a guest house where each emotion or experience is the visitor. That's who's coming. And instead of resisting these emotions or turning away from these visitors, he's telling us, open the door, greet them, let them in, welcome them with hospitality. And in doing so, we're going to learn. We're going to learn from each of those visitors, each of those emotions, and we're gaining a deeper understanding of our own self in doing so. So I really hope that this encourages for you today, and in your learning, this mindset of openness, the mindset of acceptance, the mindset of gratitude for our full spectrum of the human experience, right? And to really embrace what life brings us, the challenges, the joy, all of that, and recognizing it with this equanimity. That's a multisyllabic word for me. Recognizing that each one of these experiences, they are contributing now to the richness that is your life. All of those emotions is the richness of your very existence here on earth. So let's welcome those emotions. And in the spirit of this poem, we're going to move on to our case scenario that was submitted by our participant who shared their life challenges and struggles that are going on at work. So these are the exact words that came from the questionnaire they filled out. And just so you know, the question that we are asking people to fill out is, what is your situational conflict or challenge? And this could be current or past. And how has it impacted you? Has it caused you stress, worry, or well-being? And in this question, we ask the participants who are filling it out to include any necessary details, but not to include names. And so I want to share this with you. I'm going to pull it up for you. And I'm going to read you the words exactly as we got it from this participant. And then we're going to work through their situation. Here's what they said. Having a bully coworker, being hired with a high caseload with the agreement of a SLPA, only to find out that the SLPA and the SPED director quit and no one knew, and knew is in quotes, the conditions of the contract. Having a manageable caseload size only to have it continue to grow post-COVID, seemingly more common, and no one willing to do anything to help you do anything about it, like hire additional help, etc. Having a supervisor who is only available via email and who will only answer occasionally. Being hired without being trained on procedures. I've had all of these this last fall at 2 schools. I left one, went to another. The stress is crazy. I work at a school. I should be able to walk away on the weekend. I occasionally share emails with the supervisor to keep her in the loop about why I haven't gotten to any of the additional 20 screenings or convos with the bully. And her response is back to everyone about how I should have more grace. I lost it yesterday after waiting on them to get me additional help that I was promised. I emailed her and told her that after 3 hours of working for free again, that was all the grace I had, and thanked her for her support. She's an SLP too. I've gotten too old to put up with it for too long after 29 years. I typically tell my recruiter to look for another position, which I did. Usually I cool off before I reply. I stew on it for a while. Sometimes I just never reply when it comes to the bully. Yesterday, I didn't think I deserved that disrespect. I should have waited until today to tell her that, but clearly I'm being overwhelmed and overworked. Time to move on. The other SLP there just quit. You'd think they'd see the pattern. Nope, they think it's us. I'm not sure how we ever get past that unless we stop putting up with it collectively. My para, who is fabulous, told me that the teachers have been complaining about telehealth. This is California. They're not going to get tons of people moving to their high cost of living unless they want to pay a lot more. They might as well get used to it. Aren't you glad they sent the invite to me today? All right. Let's just take a moment to take all of that in, because that sounds heavy. And, after someone shares their story or expresses themselves with you, it can really be a gift just to offer a moment of silence for processing that information, to let that information really sink in so that we are fully present to what's truly alive for the speaker or the storyteller. And then I would want to point out to them some empathy, right? So someone tells you their challenge or their conflict. And if the person was willing and open to receiving that empathy, this is a great time to do so. And as a reminder, the difference between sympathy and empathy is we feel sorry or pity for someone, whereas empathy is we're putting ourselves in their shoes. We're understanding what it means to be them. We're validating their experience and we're validating their emotions. So if our guest was here today, I'd want to recast that information to them. I'd want to let them know what I heard. And I would want to do so without, adding my own thoughts or opinions or ideas or solutions to what I'm saying. So I would just say, it sounds like you're facing a lot of challenges, like a bullying coworker and this high caseload due to staff turnover, and you've got lack of support, in the personnel or with an SLPA. And, this has led you to a lot of frustration. And it sounds like you're feeling really disrespected after working all these extra hours without pay, and you've had enough and you're ready to move on. Is that right? And that, despite similar issues leading other SLPs to quit, the school seems to think that these patterns that are happening are attributed to the employees. Is that right? That's got to be really hard. Is that what's going on for you? So providing that empathy and giving that speaker that opportunity to clarify, maybe if I got it wrong, maybe if I heard it wrong, sometimes I do, that I can confirm, no, this is how I'm feeling, or, well, this is kind of what I wanted to share, or this is what's more important to me. It gets you on the same page when you offer that empathy. So our case study is having real challenges, right? That all of us at some point we might have faced in the workplace. So we recognize those experiences and challenges. We welcome them in, we welcome those guests, we validate it, right? And we open up the communication and we start to build this foundation in our discussion, right? Building our trust. Because when the person feels that they're heard or they're seen, they might open up more, or they might be willing to listen to feedback, right? Or they might be thinking, wow, you see me, or wow, you get me. So empathy is that piece that we can offer. And for those listening who might be holding in their struggles, or you hold in your pain and you're not sharing it with others due to fears or other reasons, you can offer yourself the same empathy. So you can try to look inward and you can try to connect to what's going on for you. What are you feeling? What are you needing? What emotions are present? And just allow them to be there. All right, so a quick moment of gratitude for that person who has submitted their situation and what they're working on, and for their courage and for their vulnerability if they're listening. Thank you. I think this could be very relatable. And a shout out to my chat box over here. Pop in one word if this is you. If you've experienced bullying, go ahead and throw in bullying. If you've experienced unresponsive supervisors or personnel, go ahead and throw in unresponsive. If you felt overwhelmed or frustrated, I'm sure I'm going to see the chat box really flowing with overwhelmed and frustrated because it's all too common in our field. Go ahead. Yep, overwhelmed. Here it comes. It's coming in overwhelmed from Jean. Yes, bullying. Yes, exactly. Frustrated. Yes, right? So we can relate. We can certainly relate. It might not look the same way, the story, but when we connect to what's going on for us, our feelings and needs, we're going to see how we actually have a lot of common ground. So we asked this person in our case study, we asked them, we said, are there specific emotions that you find more challenging to express? And the words that were shared was, I don't like to get angry. I have a hard time controlling my anger. And when I'm really angry, I cry. I hate that. Yeah. There are definitely times that we do not like the feeling of anger, and we may experience many times where we don't know how to control it. And some of us might cry. It's all so very normal. Let those guests in to the house. Take a moment real quickly now just to kind of reflect on a time where you felt angry. Just recapture the situation in your mind. Don't get lost in the story, but pull on a couple details that you can remember. Where were you? Who was there? Maybe how was your posture? How did the other person sound? Think about that stimulus to your anger, and we're going to come back to that later. But grab that quick moment, grab that in your head of a time you were really angry. We're going to come back to that. Our first objective really here is to explore solutions and strategies. And I want to address the topic of anger. And I want to talk about, what is the solution to feeling anger and really being able to express it fully? What strategies can we put in place for this all too common emotion? So this is a strategy. I want you to go ahead and jot down if you can. This is called RAIN, like the weather system outside, RAIN, RAIN. And I learned this from Tara Brock. She was my teacher in my 2-year meditation certification program for teaching mindfulness and compassion-based practices. And RAIN is an acronym, RAIN, for recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. See, all of our emotions, they are carrying wisdom, right? And the invitation now is to let them in, is to welcome them and to allow them to be present and to see how they show up for you. How are they? Investigate what's going on in your body. So I've recognized this as anger, the R. I've allowed anger to be here. I am investigating it. Okay, my hands are clenched, or my jaw is tight, or my heart is racing, or my hands are sweating. I'm investigating how it's showing up in my body. And then I'm nurturing myself, right? As I'm balancing my emotions with my situation, I'm nurturing myself. I'm telling myself, you know what? Anger is here. It's okay. It's here to tell me something. I'm human. I think someone here needs to hear this today, along with the person that submitted the questionnaire. It's okay to feel angry. Anger carries wisdom. It's very real. And it's not an emotion that needs to be suppressed or hidden or buried behind closed doors or, in our speech room only. It can come out. It's a wisdom that's telling us we have unmet needs. And it can give us the adrenaline we need to really advocate and step out to advocate for our boundaries or for real and important change that needs to happen. And that's the fuel. Anger's the fuel, right? For expressing ourselves wholeheartedly. I follow Marshall Rosenberg. He is since deceased, but he's the author of Nonviolent Communication. I follow a lot of his work, and his book is A Language of Life. It's in your references. He tells us, this is a direct quote, that the first step to fully expressing anger in NVC, or compassionate communication, is to divorce the other person from any responsibility of our anger. Let me repeat that the first step to fully expressing anger in NVC is to divorce the other person from any responsibility of our anger. This is a hard pill to swallow. I mean, I don't know about you. It's a hard pill for me to swallow, to not be able to blame, right? So we're moving away now. We're shifting away from the blame game of you did this and I feel, or you made me feel this way. It's your fault, I feel, because this happened, right? Or he, she, or they made me feel a certain way. So the invitation now is to move away from blame and punishment of others, because when we blame and punish others, we are pronouncing them as essentially right or wrong, right? And if they're wrong, then maybe we think that there's some type of punishment that needs to be happening. And this perpetuates a form of violence in some sense, right? And the cause of our anger is now coming from our thinking and getting wrapped up in those stories rather than from the actions of others. And I am going to explain that more because there might be some heads shaking. Nope, 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 right now. So stay with me for a moment. I know for some this might be hard to hear because we live in a culture where it's very easy for us to be able to blame others for our well-being or our lack thereof. So Marshall Rosenberg, he tells us in this nonviolent communication that in this first step, we realize that people are never responsible for how we feel. Let me give you a hypothetical. Your day has been super stressful and busy. You're a home health therapist. You've shown up to your last appointment of the day to their home. It's their scheduled 3 p.m. therapy session with your client. The client's not there. You are upset, right? Because this is an agreed upon time you guys have talked about. Now you're sitting in your car. Frustration's growing by the minute, and you're kind of like, you're waiting to give them that like 10-minute grace period before leaving. You're wondering, are they even going to come home? And why are they so disrespectful? Why are they not calling me in advance to cancel? And now they're just going to no-show, right? So then you leave, they've no-showed, you grumble your whole way home, and you think, geez, what a waste of time. Now you're thinking like, okay, right? Your thinking mind jumps into this blame game, blaming the client for unhappiness, for our misery, for your frustration, your annoyance, whatever you're feeling, right? Because if they would have been there, we would have completed that therapy session, all would have been good, right? Well, let's take this same scenario now. Your day's been super stressful. You've been busy. You're a home health therapist. You've shown up for your last appointment of the day to their home, which is scheduled at 3 p.m. It's a 3 p.m. therapy session with your client. The client's not there. You are relieved because in those 10 minutes of giving them that grace period from your car, you were able to make like a quick call, maybe to like a doctor's appointment, to make a much needed doctor's appointment that you didn't have time to get in otherwise. Or maybe you were able to quickly check some emails that you needed to get back to that had a deadline for your response. So when they don't show up after 10 minutes, you're now super excited because you have that extra time, that ease, and that free time in your day, and you happily make your way home. Yay! 2 different outcomes, right? So if people are not responsible for how we feel, who is, right? That's the question. That's the question that begs, what is the cause for my strong feelings and emotions? In our hypothetical, we've got the same action of the client in both scenarios. They were not home for their scheduled 3 p.m. therapy session, but we have 2 entirely different outcomes. One, frustration, annoyance, anger, irritation. The second one, happiness, joy, relief, ease, woohoo, celebration maybe, right? What people do is never the cause for how we feel. Their actions may be a stimulus to highlight, to put that flashlight on our met or unmet needs. And it is our met or unmet needs that are the cause for our emotions. Our needs matter to us. It's what's important to us. It's what we value. It's what we desire. So perhaps in the first example, if you're upset, the client's not there, there was an unmet need for integrity, an unmet need for maybe respect, consideration, or support. But in the second example, where you're feeling woohoo, you're celebrating, you're relieved, you're happy, this met a need maybe for ease or for quiet or for peace or for joy. So the solution to our emotions, whether it be anger, disappointment, embarrassment, loneliness, sadness, is really to R, recognize it. A, allow it. I, investigate, see where it shows up in your body. And N, nurture. And the strategy then of moving forward, once you're in that stable place, you're moving through that RAIN process, and you feel like you're in a comfortable place, you don't have to wait for the emotion to pass entirely, but you're able to show up in a wise way that you won't regret what you said or did later. You've balanced your inner world, right? Your emotions with your outer world, your external environment. That's the invitation, right? Now you've moved away from the blame game of who did what. And the strategy now is that we connect to our own feelings and needs in a situation. Let's take a moment real quick. I want to hop into the chat box. I'm curious from our listeners. Are you guys with me on this, that our unmet or met needs can cause our emotions rather than specific behaviors or actions? Melanie says, wow, a really different way of thinking. It is, it's shifting. We're making that shift for ShiftMakers. We're shifting our perspective that people's actions are a stimulus, perhaps, that highlight our met or unmet needs. If you're with me on that, go ahead and throw me a with you in that chat box. Let's see. And if you're not, that's okay too. Definitely. Yes, Jean, Jessica, with you. Agree. Paola, shout out to Paola. Yes, nobody can control how you feel but you. Awesome.
Are you taking advantage of our new amazing feature? The certificate tracker. The free CE tracker allows you to keep track of all of your CEUs, whether they are earned with us at speechtherapypd.com or through another provider. Simply upload your certificate to your registered account and you're all set. So come join the fastest growing CE provider, speechtherapypd.com.
All right. So we asked our guests, are there specific emotions you find more challenging? I don't like to get angry. When I'm really angry, I cry. I hate that. I have a hard time controlling my anger. When I hear these statements, I want to reach out to our guest and first remind them again, it's okay. It's okay to get angry. You mentioned you don't like to get angry, but I invite you to remove the judgment of I don't like and replace it with acceptance. This is anger. Anger is here. It's okay. I can be with this right now, right? You make that your new mantra. I can be with this. This is part of the human experience. And in this particular case, the person, well, they have a hard time controlling their anger. And when they're really angry, they cry, they maybe judge themselves, imagining that, they hate when they cry, they hate that they're angry and they're crying. So here I would invite the guest and anyone listening to consider Marshall Rosenberg's 4 steps. This is on your handout, specifically for expressing anger in a wholehearted and full way. Because if we express anger any other way, guys, whether it's judgment, blame, criticism, we most likely will not have our needs met. And that's the point. We want to get our needs met. But by using his 4 steps to expressing anger, we open up the possibility to meeting our needs. This is a quote by Bruce Lee that I love. Quote, we don't rise to our expectations. We fall to our level of training. We don't rise to our expectations. We fall to our level of training. What is your personal training? So this is our second objective, guys. This is the practical tool I want to share with all of you. And this tool is going to help us figure out what our guest is feeling and needing. So I'm going to be hopping into the chat box a lot. So if you're not with me, come back. I invite you to minimize any distractions and screens. This is the work. We are doing the work together here. And for anybody that loves frameworks, these are the steps to fully expressing anger wholeheartedly, again, from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. It's in your references, his book, A Language of Life. And the 4 steps are also on the handout. Number 1, stop, take a breath. Number 2, identify our judgmental thoughts. Number 3, connect with our feelings and needs. Number 4, express our feelings and unmet needs. All right, let me pop these in. Stop, take a breath, identify our judgmental thoughts, connect with our needs, and express our feelings and unmet needs right there for you in the chat box. Again, it's in that workbook for you to download where you're going to get a word bank that's going to help you with this exercise that we're moving on to. It's going to be amazing for you if you're reframing those texts, those emails, your conversations both in and out of work. So be sure to grab that resource. All right, let's go back to the words of our guests, work through this a bit to determine what their feelings and needs might be in their situation. So number 1, we'd stop, we'd breathe. Everybody right now? All right, we took our breath, right? Now we're going to identify the judgmental thoughts. And To the participant who filled out our questionnaire, if they're listening, you mentioned you were open to feedback. So we are not judging your judginess. We're not saying, hey, that was judgy of you, right? You're open to feedback, and we are going to work on reframing what is very normal, which is what's called life alienating communication, communication that separates us from one another, knowingly or unknowingly. So let's take a look at some of the statements that our participant mentioned that I am hearing, that I'm imagining are judgmental thoughts. Here's an example: having a bully coworker. The statement, okay, so this is very real and alive for our participant. And the statement bully is a judgmental label. So it doesn't describe specific behaviors or actions that the colleague or person is doing to contribute to this negative perception about them, right? Nor does it talk about understanding a coworker's perspective. So right now we're just identifying, and then we'll work through those thoughts a little bit more. Another part of the response was no one else knew the conditions of the contract. I've been so guilty of using air quotes over time. There is something behind air quotes when we use them. And this use of quotation marks, I'm imagining, might suggest maybe some skepticism or maybe some judgment about the lack of awareness among others on the team, right? It might imply a little sense of blame without exploring any of the reasons behind this perceived lack of knowledge or possible lack of knowledge. Another statement was no one willing to do anything to help you do anything about it, like hire additional help, etc. When we use phrases like no one willing to do anything, although real for you and true and alive, statements like this can create a disconnect with our communication partner because it implies a judgment about a lack of support from others. It doesn't provide specific information about the circumstances or efforts made by others. I'm keeping an eye on the time. We're right on track. I want to keep you here 1 hour. All right. Another statement was her response is back to everybody about how I should have more grace. So the mention of how I should have more grace can be seen as a judgment about the supervisor's response. So this is implying maybe a disagreement or maybe some frustration with the suggestion of have more grace. And I may or may not agree with you. Again, we are just doing this task right now to pull out pieces that may appear as judgmental thoughts to learn how to reframe them. Another statement, I lost it yesterday after waiting on them to help me get additional help I was promised. So the expression I lost it, this could imply there's a strong emotional reaction happening, right? And I'm waiting on them may imply some blame for not receiving any promised assistance. And let's do one more. Clearly, I'm over being overwhelmed and overworked. Time to move on. So this phrase, clearly I'm over, this could imply a judgment about the speaker's own emotional state, which again, we're sensing or imagining is frustration or impatience. So the reason I point these out is it's really important on our part to do the work to recognize in our thinking, in our writing, in our statements that where's our judgmental thoughts? That's part 2. Identify our judgmental thinking or thoughts so that we can reframe the statements to focus on neutral observations, feelings that we have, needs, and then to be able to encourage empathy and understanding in our communication with others, okay? So that was step 2. We identify the judgmental thoughts. And you can always do this after the fact too. After a situation has already happened, go back, journal about the experience. If something is pressing and it's on your mind and you want to work through it, let that inner judge, we all have the inner judge, let the inner judge fly, get those words down on the paper. Nothing wrong. There's no wrongness in any of it. Get it out, purge it, look back at it, and try to make the shift from life alienating communication to compassionate communication. And I'm going to help you, assist you with how to change your perspective to allow you to bring in other viewpoints or neutral observations as we reframe and begin to express fully. Step 3, we are connecting with the needs. This is where I'm going to have you all jump in. You're going to help me out. Leslie from Atlanta, Georgia, I want to see you jumping in and helping me out on this one. There are no wrong answers, guys. Since our case study person's not here to specifically say, we're going to make some guesses on some possible needs of our guests given this information that we have, okay? I'm going to pop line by line items into the chat box. As you hear a need jump out at you, I'm going to invite you to type it into the chat box. Again, if you have the universal needs inventory sheet from the workbook handy. This is a great time to reference that. For those in the chat box right now, I'm going to copy and paste some needs for you now so that you have a reference at a glance. Let me paste some universal needs that we all have. All right. Some of them I've thrown out for those listening is autonomy, celebration, integrity, creativity, self-worth. We have a need for meaning, acceptance, appreciation, closeness, community, consideration, emotional safety, empathy, air, food, movement, exercise, protection from life-threatening bacteria or viruses or predatory animals. That is one, it's not on there. Rest, fun, laughter, harmony, a need for order, peace, a need for I just want to be inspired, inspiration. That's a big one for me. That's why I exaggerated that one. Honesty, love, respect, support, understanding, trust. These are universal needs that I'm sure everybody in the chat box can relate to at some point, having had that need. So let's take a look at this first line item, having a bully coworker. I want to see you guys, just one word, throw it in. What do you think is our participants from the questionnaire? What are some needs that they might be having? And no wrong guesses. But if you said, I'm having a bully coworker, what do you think are some needs that might be coming up? If you have a bully coworker, what are you needing? Go ahead and throw in some of those one words in the chat box. I'm coming over. I'm looking for you guys. I'm looking for Leslie from Atlanta. Lila, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you, Eileen. You said you're with me here. Good. All right. Yes. Melanie is saying respect. Absolutely. Acceptance. Joni, having a irresponsible coworker. Yeah. Self-worth. Yes. A need for communication, a need for acceptance, a need for validation. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I was thinking, yes, and maybe emotional safety. If I think there's a bully that is my coworker, I might have a need for emotional safety and consideration as well. Yes. All right. I'm loving you guys in the chat box. Don't go away. Jessica, don't go away. I see your honesty and respect. I love that. I've got another one for you. Let's look at this statement made by our participant. Being hired with a high caseload with the agreement of a SLPA, only to find out that the SLPA and the SPED director quit and no one else knew the conditions of the contract. What is our participants' needs when you're hearing this? We're peeling back the layers of the onion, which is peeling back the words. Trust. Yes, there is a need for trust, support. Yes, there is a need for some support. Absolutely. Anybody else? Go ahead and throw out those needs when you think about you were hired saying a job was going to be a certain way, and it is nothing like that. Validation. Yes, validation. When people just up and quit and you're like, hello, where did you go? What are we needing? Competence. I love that. Honesty, trust. Absolutely. You guys are, yes, I love my chat, but yes, more trust. You guys are seeing it. You guys are feeling it. You guys are dropping beneath the words to connect to needs. Communication. Yes. All right, let's go on to the next one. I'm loving this. So remember, everybody, this is step 3. We're connecting to our needs, right? We're stripping back those words to hear the message that is underneath, the important message underneath. And I always talk about the onion, pulling back the layers of the onion. And those are the words to get to what's going on for the person. Here's the next one. Being hired without being trained on procedures. What are some possible needs? All right, here you are. You're hired, you're thrown on the job, and there's no training. No training for you. What do we think? I'm thinking maybe help. I'm thinking support. I'm thinking definitely the training piece needs to be brought in, right? Definitely some needs happening when you're thrown into a new job and you don't have the training. Support, communication, again, idea of expectations. Yes. Thank you, Jean. I love that you're loving this exercise and process, and thank you for your contribution of support. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure everybody who is learning with you. All right, I put the next one in, guys. Having a manageable caseload size only to have it continue to grow post-COVID, seemingly more common, and no one willing to do anything to help you do anything about it, like hire extra help, etc. And we might even see, go ahead and throw it in. We might even see like some of these needs that are popping in this chat box are being repeated. And they can, right? We can have the same needs for many different circumstances. And this is where the common ground comes. This is where it's like, I can relate to you. I get that. I've needed that before. I felt that way before. Yes. All right. We've got some new messages. Competence, reassurance, trust, respect, support, ask for help with evals. Yes, the help. Absolutely. Self-worth. I love it. I love how you guys are coming up with these needs. And for every person who is in this situation, the needs absolutely can look different. So to our participant, these might not be your exact needs, or we might be hitting the nail on the head for some of them. Having a supervisor who's only available via email and who will only answer occasionally. What have we got here? Thank you, Leslie, for your contribution. Bring in requirements to service kids. Communication again. Yes, communication. That was the first one I was thinking. Melanie, we're on the same page. Absolutely. Commitment, right? The consideration, again, the support. I love this one. And I think everybody's going to be like, yeah, I have felt this at some point in time. I should be able to walk away on the weekend. Who doesn't want to walk away on the weekend? All right, possible needs. This one takes a little more thought. Why do you guys want to have your weekends? What's important to you? What do you value? What matters? Yes, Kether, work-life balance. I hope I'm saying your name right. Absolutely. Why do you want your weekend, guys? What does it mean to you? What do you value? What matters? What do you desire? I desire rest. Oh, Paula, right at the same time as me. Yes, mental rest. Yes, Jenna. You will burn out if not. Yes, time. Jean, thank you very much. Ease, peace, work-life balance, fun. I want to hit up the comedy club. Want some laughter in my life, right? Absolutely. All right, let's go to another one. I occasionally share emails with the supervisor to keep her in the loop about why I haven't gotten to any of the additional 20 screenings or convos with the bully, and her response is back to everyone how I should have more grace. That's already pulling at my heartstrings. I already have the empathy. I'm feeling for this participant. I'm feeling for them. Anybody have any guesses on what they're needing? Wow. Respect. Yeah. Gosh, we need respect as humans. We need support and understanding and grace. Yes, grace. Maybe they're needing empathy, right? Like put yourself in my shoes and what I'm going through. Please don't just tell me to have more grace. Get into my shoes, feel what I'm feeling, understand my perspective and my viewpoint. All right, I've gotten too old to put up with it for this long after 29 years. Advocacy, yes. Thank you, Jean. I've gotten too old to put up with it for too long after 29 years. Man, what is this person needing after 29 years of putting up with this, right? What are they needing? My goodness. What a gift if they could get harmony. Oh, validation. Yes. 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 Thank you for all it is serious to not meet state requirements of service, being valued. Yes. Maybe this person of 29 years wants peace. They want ease on the job. They want harmony. They want well-being, right? All right, let's do one more. There's so many here. I love these. And I love how you recognition. Yeah, exactly. For all my hard work, appreciation, right? For all my achievements, celebration for all the things that I've done. The list could go on and on. You pick the ones that are your priority, right? There could be a few, could be some top ones that are really calling out to you. All right, let's try one more. The other SLP there just quit. You'd think they'd see the pattern. Nope, they think it's us. What do we think about this? Possible needs. The other SLP quit. You think they'd see the pattern. Nope, they think it's us. I've heard this before. Again, validation, to be heard, to be understood. Yes, Jessica, support, respect, just trust for our words to have meaning. Meaning, we have a need for meaning. We have a need for shared reality. Like, you need to see it the way I'm seeing it. What's happening here, right? So we've purged our story onto paper. We shift into our needs. We look beneath the words that we wrote or words that maybe we're hearing from someone else if they're venting to us without taking the blame for maybe what they're sharing. We're not taking the blame for what is alive in someone else. We're not making someone else responsible for what's alive in us. We're going deeper. We're going deeper to the unmet needs that are driving our emotions and driving our thought process. All right. I want to move on to our fourth step because I want to honor your time in the 1 hour we have today. We've got about 15 minutes or so left. And I want to take some questions too. So I want to go on to our fourth step. So step one was stop. Take a breath. Step two was notice our judgmental thoughts. When we listed those out, we worked through those. Okay. You're just going to journal those out. Before you send that email, look at them. What's going on in them, right? Step three was to connect to our needs. now that I'm looking at those judgmental thoughts or that life alienating communication that diagnoses or blames or criticizes or compares people or labels people, what's beneath that? What are the needs? Okay, so now we've named some needs. You guys were amazing. Thank you. I'm feeling so stoked to have that chat box rolling. It's one of my favorite parts of PD, the interaction that we have together. So now that we threw out those amazing, beautiful needs, now we express our feelings and our unmet needs wholeheartedly, right? Because when we can express our feelings and our unmet needs, guys, this is when we promote positive change. This is when we build personal and professional growth in the area of happiness on the job, career satisfaction, and work-life balance, or in learning how to advocate for ourselves, or in learning how to say, like, dude, stop like busting my boundaries. Like, I'm going to set some boundaries now. And this is our third objective. It's step 4. It's learning how to share our anger with another person. But we are doing so now in a way that is going to be free from judgment and blame and criticism. And our expression, our words that we share are now rooted and connected to what's alive for us. What's alive for us in our own feelings and our unmet needs. And again, you might have been able to connect those to the word banks in that workbook, that universal feelings and need charts that's given to us from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And I recognize, guys, and I want to say, if you want to learn more about him, go to cnvc.org. I'm going to put it in the chat box because there are local places near you and organizations. Oops, I didn't even spell that right. cnvc.org, Center for Nonviolent Communication.org. I recognize, guys, it is not always easy, and it takes a lot of courage and confidence and at times security with yourself to be able to come forth with what's going on for you. In fact, many people avoid conflict, and we're going to be talking about that in one of our future episodes in this mini podcast series, Avoiding Conflict, because it just seems easier. I'd rather not deal with it, brush it under the rug. I don't want to look at it. I'm too exhausted. I don't have the space for it. So I understand this is the hard part. It can most certainly be so much easier just to quickly shout out blame and judgments and negativity, right? But to be vulnerable and sharing our deepest emotions, that's tough. And I do want to recognize that, no doubt. There's a book, and it's in your reference also. It's called Say What You Mean. And this is by Orrin J. Soffer. He suggests that you can prepare ahead of time for tough conversations, and he offers ways to do that. And he says, start by nourishing yourself so you feel more clear, you feel more balanced, you can give yourself some empathy. Maybe if you have a safe communication partner that you can go to and say, hey, I just specifically need some empathy right now before I go and have this difficult conversation. You can touch base with that person. And then Orrin tells us that investigate what's at stake. So what that means is before I go into this difficult, challenging conversation, what do I want to gain from this conversation? What's my goal in this conversation? What do I want from it? Is it more understanding? Do I just want to be right? And then take a look at that too in true honesty. Or am I looking for a resolution, some type of solution? Maybe the way I look, my self-image, is my self-image at stake? Is this even the right time? Timing. My mom, she taught me that growing up. Timing is everything. When I used to approach my father about anything, timing is everything, Stephanie. So is this the right time to approach somebody for a conversation? And then he tells us, lastly, to humanize the other person. Think about them as a human being, right? Consider their perspectives. Put yourself in their shoes. Be humble enough to even see where maybe you have contributed to the problem. That was always my tough part, but I learned to do it, especially when it's a safe space for me to journal it and no one's looking over my journal. I kind of know what I did, what my part in this was that wasn't helpful. So let's go back to, we've got some time here. I want to go back to our guest statement and reframe these in a way that expresses anger now compassionately, not now compassionately, although they didn't, as saying that they didn't express it compassionately. But I'm saying now that we've worked through our process and we're in step 4, let's move on to phrasing things compassionately. This is the work for you also. Again, how often are you on that screen time, writing texts, writing emails, sharing information in person, collaborating with parents and colleagues? I mean, it's a big piece of our job, of our career and our personal life, right? And we want to begin to catch ourselves, and we want to start to make that shift. We're becoming shift makers, hence the title I came up with for this podcast. It's like I think someone said to me, but couldn't it be read too quickly as makers, excuse my language. And I'm like, well, it's the opposite of that. We're moving from that into being shift makers. We're making that shift, right? Moving out of life alienating communication, the criticism, diagnoses, blame, and judgment. And we're moving into this compassionate, connected, wise speech that we are proud of, that speech that connects us to who we truly are, that we feel good about later, that aligns with our core values. So in your workbook, you've got the 4-step process to reframing communication as presented from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. There is a sheet just on the steps and a little tidbit about each. But I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the chat box for you. We've got, all right, step 1, observation. This is free from judgment now, neutral observations. Number 2, express your feelings. I feel. Okay. Number 3, then express your unmet need or what matters to you. Because I have a need for is the sentence starter for all of our clinicians out there that love those sentence starters. Number 4, then make a request that is actionable, clear, and positive. Would you be willing to? So it looks like when I see, and we make our observation neutral, I feel, we throw in our universal feeling, because I have a need for, or because it matters to me that, or because I value, and we throw in that universal need. Would you be willing to, and we throw in that question that will enrich life for everybody. Okay, we never want to ask a question of somebody else that would not also support them as well. We want to make sure that this is something for where everybody's needs matter. So don't ask a question at the expense. I invite you not to ask a question. See how I just reworded that? I heard myself say don't. And that's one of the things I'm practicing, moving away from telling people don't, making it an invitation. I invite you now. I invite you to be able to make a request that supports the needs for everyone and is not at the expense of another person. All right. So I want to go through these really quickly and tell you some possibilities and some ways that we can reframe using the 4-step that I threw in the chat box. Let's go back to the one that we talked about, having a bully coworker. If I were going to reach out to said bully, I might go to them, starting with my observation. Again, listen for that observation, listen for that feeling, that need, that request. When you said to me yesterday, your students' delayed progress is noticeable and kind of reflects poorly on your commitment to the job, I felt really upset and uneasy all day. It made me realize I have a lot of needs for consideration and respect at work. What do you feel when I tell you this? Okay, so we're calling out the specific behaviors or the actions of said colleague that you might be having difficulties with, and we're addressing it with them, sticking to our observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And you'll hear that I language. This keeps listeners' ears open. Let's go to the next part. Being hired with a high caseload with the agreement of a SLPA, only to find out that the SLPA and the SPED director quit and no one knew the conditions of the contract. Having a manageable caseload size only to have it grow post-COVID, seemingly more common, and no one willing to do anything about it. Listen for the observation, feelings, needs, request. When I was hired, I agreed to a high caseload with the support of an SLPA. When I found out that the SLPA and the SPED director quit, I was really frustrated and very concerned and confused by the fact that the other staff members were not aware of my specifications for taking this assignment. I'm needing more support and understanding, and this experience has triggered my needs for integrity and follow through on an agreement when it's set. Could we talk next Monday about some possible strategies to manage my high caseload? Are you guys hearing? Throw in a yes in the chat box if you guys are hearing a very clear observation in the first sentence, a feeling in the second, connecting it to needs in the third, and a request in the fourth. Yes, Lila is with me. Yes, very good. So listen for those. Here's our next one. Having a supervisor who is only available via email and who only answer occasionally. Being hired without being trained on procedures. Listen for these 4 statements. When I call you 3 times a week and send emails daily, and you only answer me or call me back once a month, I get so irritated and angry because I'm needing more support and dependability. I feel hopeless and alone when I don't have the amount of support I'm needing or answers to my burning questions. Would you be willing to put a plan in place to touch base, maybe via phone or email, at least one time a week for 30 minutes? All right, Leslie's with me. Eileen's with me. Jean, yes, you guys are hearing this. I should be able to walk away on the weekend. Hallelujah. Yes, amen to that. When I am taking home between 1 to 3 reports each weekend to write for IEP meetings, I feel really overwhelmed and exhausted. My desire for rest and ease and fun on the weekend is not happening. Could we meet next week for an hour to talk about strategies to manage my workload? Very clear. When I see, when I hear, I feel, because I have a need for. Would it be possible if you? Would you be willing to? And again, those little sentence starters and script phrases are in your workbook, in your handouts. I really hope you guys are with me. I really hope that some of this is supporting you. If it's not supporting you, you definitely have an opportunity to throw in some feedback after this is over. I'll tell you how to do that. And I do want to hear in the suggestion boxes if this is not meeting your needs, because feedback in all of our jobs is so very important. This professional development is here for all of you. And we are here, especially at speechtherapypd.com, to support you. I'm here to support you. And that feedback is going to help me learn and grow and support you better. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Lila, I love this compassionate communication strategy. Woo! Yes, very good. I love the sentence starters. Melanie, yes. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them. All right, let me do maybe one more in our time here. Yesterday, I didn't think I deserved that disrespect. I should have waited until today to tell her that, but clearly I'm being overwhelmed and overworked. Time to move on. The other SLP there just quit. You'd think they'd see the pattern. Nope, they think it's us. I'm not sure how we ever get past that unless we stop putting up with it collectively. My para, who's fabulous, told me the teachers have been complaining about telehealth. This is California. They're not going to get tons of people moving to their high cost of living unless they want to pay more. They might as well get used to it. I just jumped to needs here. I'm needing more respect. I'm feeling overwhelmed with my caseload size and my workload, and I'm ready to look for a new assignment. I need a new assignment. I was hopeful, maybe a feeling of hopeful. I was hopeful that the organization would understand what is happening. I was needing more connection and maybe understanding from the teachers is what I'm hearing. However, I found myself upset and frustrated each day. And I noticed that I was the only one voicing it among all the SLPs. So I'm taking responsibility just for me and what I'm hearing. And telehealth, in my opinion, is an appropriate plan for serving students when there are no SLPs who are available to provide therapy on site. All right, before we wrap up here, let's go back to that self-reflection you did at the beginning of the episode where you were thinking about a situation that made you angry. You were visualizing who it was with, maybe where you were, maybe what was said. Go back to that for a second, pull it up in the Rolodex of all those times you've been angry. And now I want you to think about the steps we discussed. And I want you to think about how could you now express anger fully in NVC to your communication partner by connecting to your unmet needs, to your feelings, your universal feelings. And what requests could you make to enrich life for yourself that, again, wouldn't be an imposition on someone else or their well-being? What requests would you like to make of that person with whom you had the challenge? And again, think about that situation moving away from blame and judgment and using compassionate communication. So, all right, guys, here we have it. Today, you are walking out of here with solutions and strategies to addressing anger or any other intense emotions in the workplace. We've got the RAIN strategy of recognize, allow, investigate, nurture that emotion. And then we have the 4 steps to anger as given to us by Marshall Rosenberg to expressing anger fully. Stop and breathe. Notice the judgmental thoughts. Connect to your unmet needs. And then express your feelings and unmet needs. Again, in compassionate communication in NVC. Again, framing that conversation with neutral observations, feelings, needs, requests in a very non-judgmental way. Why? You're going to feel better. You're going to feel like something's lifted off of you. The energy in the room is going to change. Your communication partner, their ears, they're not going to close. They're going to listen because you're not blaming. You're talking about what's going on for you and your experience. And you're taking responsibility and accountability for how you're feeling and what you're needing and what need wasn't met. And now we can sit down and strategize some ways to meet those needs together that work for everybody, because everybody's needs matter. Let's do a quick check-in. OMG, 6, look at me, Miss Punctuality. This is a never. I just want to celebrate this moment right now. I want to close out our time together. I want you to pop in that chat box, any feeling, that a universal feeling that might be alive for you right now. Maybe it's excitement, maybe it's boredom, maybe it's hunger, maybe it's sleepiness, anything. Go ahead and pop it out. Grateful, Jessica. Yes, I want to see. I'm definitely feeling excited. That is what is alive and most present for me right now. Happy. Yes. Thank you, Joni. Appreciation. Thank you, Jean. You're welcome. Absolutely motivated. Yay, Jessica. Optimistic. Woohoo, Lori. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here. We are ending our session now, again, with gratitude for our guests for sharing their struggles and their pain points. Thank you. Not our guest, I guess our participant in the questionnaire. Thank you. Let's just take a moment now to take a deep breath in and out together, coming to a close, but hang tight. I got to tell you what to do with your speech therapy, pd.com account. Again, breathing in and out. So much gratitude. Thank you all so much. So we are closing out today. Thank you for joining us. And let's see if there's any other questions. Again, Yumi is putting in the speechtherapypd.com right now. If anybody wants to share their stories, you can go to that link for an opportunity for it to be shared on a future podcast. Aaron, like I enjoyed a decadent treat. Yeah, Aaron, woohoo! Interesting way to think about issues at work. Thank you, Leslie. Are there any questions before we sign off? All right, I'm just scrolling back. Empowered, Jenna. I love that word. Eileen, calmness, knowing I can use these strategies. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. If you want to find out more about me, you can head to my website at www.goldenstateofmindpd.com. My Instagram is golden.state.slp. My LinkedIn is Stephanie Michelle Swigert. That is Michelle with one L. You can also join my email list to receive free resources as it relates to compassionate communication in your personal and professional life. Again, you can do so at goldenstateofmindpd.com. So much gratitude for all of you here tonight. And cheers to you using compassionate communication moving forward. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you for joining us for today's course. To complete the course, you must log into your account and complete the quiz and the survey. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete mailing address in your account profile prior to course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to reflect on your ASHA transcript. Please note that if this information is missing, we cannot submit to ASHA on your behalf. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining us at SLP Learning Series. Remember to go to speechtherapypd.com to learn more about earning ASHA CEUs. We appreciate your positive reviews and support and would love for you to write a quick review and subscribe. If you like this and want to hear more, we are offering an audio course subscription special coupon code to listeners of this podcast. Type the word SLP Learn for $20 off. With hundreds of audio courses on demand and new courses released weekly, it's only $59 per year with the code. Visit speechtherapypd.com and start earning ASHA CEUs today.